Hi everybody, welcome back to the Journey Coach. I'm Tammy Mosier and I am a professor, a coach, and a consultant. And one of the things that I work with the different doctoral students that are a part of either the programs I teach in, who subscribe to the Journey Coach as a channel to just help them kind of navigate that process, or our students I work with individually in more of a consultant coach capacity. I have really started recommending Notion as a software that can help you organize everything. And one of the things we all know is that when you're on any journey, having some kind of structure and method for tracking where you want to go and where you are, and that journey from getting to where you are to where you want to go becomes vital because it helps you really focus appropriately and get to the end result you want. But finding that software can be very challenging. And if you are like me, you've probably used multiple softwares as kind of a Frankenstein package to get what you need done. And that becomes draining in and of itself, the search for the perfect software. And honestly, for me, I think I've really found it. And I've started to invest heavily in using it. And I'm recommending the same. So what we're going to talk about today is really how to start to set up projects that are related to the research you need to do. Now, this is research in a class, so the assignments you need to write. This could also be research that's your larger dissertation project, which, as we know, takes a lot of work to get all the elements correctly put together, and to track that project can become quite a challenge in and of itself. So there's many different ways in which we can do this. What I'm going to do is focus on one today, and then I'll pick up another tomorrow. And we'll start to look at how you can really put together both your classroom work and the research process itself. So one of the things that's great about the use of Notion is your ability to create templates. And those templates can make it much easier for you to ramp something up quickly, especially when there are specific things you want to do over and over again. So I have a couple of examples here for us to look at, one in which I've actually populated some data, and the other two of which have a lot of empty space, so we can look at what the template will do with that, and then we'll create one and apply a template. So let's open up team research first. Now this one happens to be one that I have already collected data for, and we've had a few meetings about. It took about 3 years to collect the data associated with this, and so we're really ready to move on to the stage where we start to build out all the other elements. Now, you'll see here in the properties, there's not a huge list here. I really prefer to have minimal property lists, and that's one of the reasons why I have multiple databases instead of just one. This area is research and writing. That becomes important for searches. It is related to this week. I actually had it placed on that week in my weekly planner as an action item to get all the data and everything moved over into Notion, so I could start to see what this would look like. This is a formula field, which gives me a tracking bar for our progress on the project. So for this to start to populate as a percentage, there would need to be actual tasks that are completed. So down here in related to actions, the actions is a database for task lists. And so as tasks get added here and completed, the formula would have this particular progress bar start to fill out. It's a little more of an advanced skill, but it is, I think, really useful. And the formula is tied to this progress bar, which is tied to the related actions. So I'll walk you through that here in a few minutes. Then I also have a notes database. So this is a research notes database. And if you look over here to the left, you'll see that database here. So I'm going to click on that for a minute, so you can see what this looks like. So my note here is stuff I collect from meetings and random interactions related to research. So research meetings we actually have. So this has a slightly different setup in terms of what I collect as properties, right? So I'm just going to open that one. I have the meeting date. the project it's connected to, team members. So I don't have this set up right now as a team board, although it could be, because my team members can be members of the education community, so they would be able to set up an account, and just a basic personal account is free to start with. So even if they only used it for us to integrate and work in this particular software program, we could do that. Meeting focus. So what did we do in this meeting? Well, this one was a data review. So this is just a text field. I could put this as a select field and put some very distinct categories in here. Then related to, so this is related to my calendar. So the resonance calendar is actually where kind of shared wisdom goes, where I actually want to rename this. And I won't right now. But for that, I really am looking at setting up a database where articles can go. So right now, for this particular project, all the research articles we pulled to kind of pull together our literature review before setting up this project are in files in a shared Dropbox folder. So what I want to do next is move all of those journal articles into Notion, into a journal article database, and or research. I may call it a resource database for research, but whatever I call it, it will have just those types of articles, and then I would connect those. So there would be a string of what's connected here. And then the tag system. So here you'll see just some notes. I have some files. So these are actually SPSS files, which is a program for quantitative data analysis. And so these are some of the files that got spit out of that system as we ran some of the data. So that gives you kind of an overview of what the notes database looks like. So I'm going to go back over to projects, and in my gallery here, I have different views. Right now, my research projects are all in the hold gallery, but I could also call this the research gallery and just have the different research projects pop up in that way. So open this back up, and that's what this system, what this kind of looks like. So this is the layout for my template that I used here. So at first up here, I kind of put just a place where we could put ideas. So any kind of underlying idea I want to associate with this particular research project, a focus that I want to hold when thinking about the project, that could change, it could stay the same. And then I have the research plan. So this is a toggle. And I set it up that way because there's a lot of elements inside the research plan. And what I wanted to make sure of was that I could cut the noise when I'm looking at things. So aims of the research. So here are our aims for this particular research. Hypotheses or research questions. So this is where you kind of type those in and get a feel for what those would look like. So if you start, if you're working on a project where you have to, like a dissertation, where all of this has to be thought through, this is a place for you to kind of work that out. And once you get it focused, to have it here so you can always easily refer back to it. Our methods in design, our data collection plan, and then the data analysis plan. And those can morph, change, different research notes can focus in different ways on that data. But this is actually what we put together and was part of our submission to the IRB, which is the Institutional Review Board, which if you're doing subject research, so if I'm actually focused on people, right, then the IRB protects the rights of those people, and especially elements in the population that are more vulnerable in research. And so you have to submit a plan, and that plan has to be approved before you move forward with any of your research. So I work on a university. Any research I do that would fall within that category has to go through a review. So this is the type of data, and the plan itself has to go in for the IRB, which we actually have an IRB for that. So this would be something that I could put down in here as an upload, and I haven't moved all those documents because then this is a project that was started quite a while back in terms of data collection. And I was really putting it in here so we could see how this worked. So I would move the IRB approval letter over into here. I could have in all IRBs, especially if you have multiple year projects, you have to report into the IRB on the status of it, where you're at. Has there been anything that has gone differently than expected or that needs to be reported? So this is one of those areas where I would put that letter here, anything like that. I might even, let's say, go from just in articles, which is where I could embed articles directly if I wanted to, and so there could be a long string here. The challenge with this is that you will often have, for a research project, you might have 50 or 100 articles that are a part of that overall research and the literature review. So that would be a long list to just have listed here. So this may be more of a place where if one of us find an article we're interested in but aren't sure we're going to use, where members of the team could drag and drop it. And then you would just have it sitting here to come back to review. But there are other ways to handle that. This is one way. But I may also just set another kind of link here that I can pull information in. Then I set up the research notes section. So these are the project notes that start to populate across here. So where this can be very useful, especially in team research, and if you are, for instance, working on your dissertation, you might put here, this might include things like your thought process at different times during the research, so journaling about how this is evolving, which being able to look back on that can be very helpful. I would also really recommend, if you are working on your dissertation, that in this section you record notes that you have with your chair, your committee, or anybody who's helping you develop that research plan. So this is where you should really document all of that so you can come back and listen to it. So this would be a great place for those. I've been on those calls with my mentees or as part of an overall committee, and the person, that the student, the researcher, is not taking good notes. And by the time they get to the end of the overall conversation and they haven't taken any notes, and then they get off the call and they don't immediately work on filling those notes out and capturing everything, then the next time we get together to meet, they haven't really addressed the concerns. And tracking that is vital. Because if you've got, and you're on the phone with your mentor and you go, well, according to our conversation last week or last month, this is what we decided to focus on. This is what I've done to achieve that. You could even, if I'm a mentee, if I have a mentee in their dissertation phase, I would really want us to set up a research dashboard for their research in Notion that they share with me, or at least elements with me, so I can help them. That's not a must, but it could be very useful to try to help them to leave notes and give them information, or if they have a question, doing an @ and putting my name in and sending that question through this system so my answers are documented as part of this. If you're working on a team on a assignment in a class, this could also be very useful because it's a dashboard for that larger assignment. So how did I set this up? Well, this is an embedded database. Right? It's the research notes database embedded, and I have one filter on it. And the filter is projects and team research. So that way, only the notes that are a part of the team research plan is going to be viewed here on the team research dashboard. Down here, this is the connection to my actual to-do list database. So I'm going to delete the filter real quick. And what you'll see show up is everything I have in that database, right? So you can look down through here and see the tasks start to run pretty long. And there's the not started, in progress, waiting, completed, recurring. So as you're looking at this, I don't need this in the team research. So up here where these 3 little dots are on the right, I'm going to click, and I'm going to go down to a filter because I want a filtered view. I'm going to add a filter. I'm going to do this by project, and then I'm going to select the project. So for this one, the project is team research. Now, as you can see, there are no action items on this one right now because it's on hold, but I can add a new action item to my overall action database right here. So when I'm working on this project and I go, oh, we need to X. Well, this isn't going to be started yet. And so when I look at this, what do we need to do? I open this page. I've got all this information to fill out. That's a part of this. And, you know, I've got some different action item templates down here I could use. So this could be, you know, I may add in a new template and go, I need a new template for research items. And then we could design what that template would look like and what I want to fill in. And then there's the resource area. So I don't have, as you can see, tons of information on here in terms of, it's not a busy page. It doesn't look out of control, but there's some other things I could do with this. So let's say I want to add a link to our, let me go down here and find it, and then we'll talk about it, to our Google Doc. So we want to work on and write, I want to write in a Google Doc. That's where I'm going to, you know, focus my activity. So this would be how I would embed that. Now there are other ways to do that, and I talk about some of those in terms of some other software you can use to help with in-text citations, following the method for formatting that's needed for your particular area of expertise. So for me, that's APA or AMA, depending on what kind of journals I'm writing for. So I have a software program that then really tracks more in-depth work with this. And we can look at that a little later as well. But right now, I could connect to a Google Drive and a particular Google Doc that, as a team, we want to kind of be fleshing out our overall outline. This would be where I would probably put my dissertation template that the university gives me. I would embed it in here as a Google Doc. So I would import it to Google Docs, embed it in here, and then I would have an easy way to work on that as I'm working on this project and tracking things. So you can really get as detailed as you want with how this kind of all flows together and works. So this is an overview of how I set up a research project and have a research page where project and team members can come together, or where I can put everything that has to do with my particular dissertation. And there are some other items you could add on here and really start to work with. So if I open one of these up, what you'll see is there's not a lot in here except for the template. And so if I open up this, there's nothing's been developed in each of these areas yet. So the template populated for me, and I don't have a filter view with this project. As you can see, this is just an all-in research notes. So the team research came in. This is actually my to-do database as a just an all-in board, a table. And if you'll see here, now this is interesting. So I have two items here that have somehow ended up on this list that have nothing in them. So I want to go over here to where I've got the 6 little dots, and I'm going to delete this because it's an empty action item. It's just taking up space. That's how easy that is. Here's another one. And that sometimes happens when I'm moving around, like I clicked in the action items and didn't finish filling that in, and I didn't delete it. So that's what ends up on here. Now I like to have, you know, just as kind of a, I like the, you know, the cover. So you can change this cover, put a cover on it. You can put the little icon, and I like to have that. This is a gallery view, and so I can tell it to put those that property. So up here it's the page cover, is the card preview, so that gives you that little picture, and then I click what I want to show on this gallery. So let's say I want to start a new one. Right, so I can pull this up. Now here's where my project templates are. I have a research project template, a video project template, and a general university template. So I'm going to click research project, and that all populates for me. So if I open this as a page, this all populated in. So now all I have to do is go in and start filling this in for this particular research plan, putting the filters on it for this particular project. So for this one, I would go filter, project, and this one is, let's get the projects up here. It's not team research. I think this one is we'll just do peer mentoring. I think that's what it is. This is an untitled, but I could do peer mentoring, which I actually have an item already on there. And I'd filter this the same way for this particular project, which I don't have a title on it yet. So I would name the project, I would add the icon, I would add the cover, I would fill in all these areas because these are a part of the properties in my project properties. And then I would go down and start to really kind of think this through and fill it in. Add any extra resources, the IRB form, things of that nature I want here. So it may just be a link to the general IRB application at this point, right? So I may put that in a Google Doc and then we can work on it in here. So if I want to create the template, let's say you're ready to create a template, and this may be classes, and so each class is a project. You can go over here to where it says new. There's actually two ways to do this. I like the new function in the little drop down arrow, and it says new template. So that's what I would select. But if I want to change the way my template for research projects looks, so when I start a new project, so maybe I was in team research, we decided to add that Google Doc area. I want to add another area to something else. I do that in the project I'm working in if that's important enough to me. But I also want to look at my actual research project template and update things there so that as I move forward, that change is already made. So I'm going to go over to my three dots and I'm going to go edit. And this brings up the research project template. And you'll see at the top it says you're editing a template in projects. So now I can go down here and this has my connection to my board. It has my research notes. Now, one other thing I may go, you know what? I don't like this just being all in immediately. And even if I had 50 items for this research project, I don't really want them taking up all of this page unless I want to look at them. So I might go, I want to add a toggle list. And I'm going to call it research project actions. Okay? Now, I can highlight this and I can look at this and go, okay, so this is what I want it called now. So I want to take this board, right? So I'm going to take this and I'm going to click and hold, and you'll see it grays out those 6 dots, and I'm going to drag it and put it in there. And now if I click that, it opens up. So what that allows me to do is really kind of easily set this up so that I get this clearer view. I can do the same thing with research notes. As my research notes, if we're in an active working stage on a research project, we may have a research meeting once a week to twice a week. And so I would have a lot of these start to populate. And there may be a point where, like this, I don't want it just taking up page space. So I could do the same thing and create that toggle. So now it's easy for me to go, okay, I want to look at my action items. I don't want to look at the action items. And you can do that with any of the areas on here. And you see that in my weekly planner, right? So if I go into my weekly planner, that's how I have my things to get done and my grading list. And I have that set up so that I can minimize that and it's not all over the page. Okay, so this is your next kind of push forward. What I would like you to do is really think about either the classes you're taking, the projects you have at home, the research or writing projects you're looking at for a dissertation, if you're already starting to work on putting those pieces together, and think about how you want to look at your information. What's important to you to see on a dashboard. So you can open it up and get a picture of what's happening in that class, on those assignments, and we can go from there. If you want to do this as a class, as a project, then I would say your action items are assignments in that class. So get started on that, and then we'll pick this up next time. It's been great talking to you. Be sure you subscribe to the channel if this is something you want to continue learning more about. And I look forward to talking to you in the next video.